still fit within the framework of the story, which is like the most important part, right? But here we go, guys. Are you ready? Another Bookfox video. Let's fucking go.
Whether you are just beginning, stuck in the middle, or nearing the end of your book, nothing is more terrifying than not knowing the next thing to write. Here are 8 pieces of advice that will help you finish your book. 1. Set realistic goals.
Set realistic goals.
Nothing is more daunting than trying to bear hug a whole novel and be like, this year I'm going to write my book. Well, sometimes that can just seem too intimidating, right? I mean, that's why I stuck with short stories for such a long time, because I was afraid of trying to tackle it.
Ha! See, short stories are amazing, guys. That's why he talks so much about short stories. Short stories are the way to go for, like, small improvements. If you're looking for, like, specific ways to improve a specific skill. I like the concept of letting writing and history take me a little, but right now they're not taking me anywhere. Well, it's like Deja, this entire story that I'm writing, my goal is to win a Pulitzer off of my Terraria fanfic. There you go, Levi. Fuck yeah, that's amazing. But Deja, my thing is a PBS space-time episode about left-handed chirals basically inspired the entire chiral clones story. And then we're like, let's go for a dystopian government, let's talk about clones, and let's weave this medical mystery into a conspiracy theory, into like, and then it was like, oh, we need to like do something that shows how the government can make clones, like how advanced their genetic engineering is. So then it became like Island of Dr. Moreau, where they're literally turning people into animals and then turning them back into humans and experimenting with genes and stuff like that to be like, have an even higher grasp on genetics. And the whole thing is done as a psychological horror.
Novel. So the best thing to do if you're struggling in a novel is just to break it up into these small, manageable chunks. So for instance, when you wake up in the morning, you don't say, oh, I'm going to write the novel today. You say, I am going to write 300 words of my novel today. And that makes it so much more accessible and doable, because after you write those 300 words, and maybe you end up with 600 words or more, you're gonna feel accomplished. You're gonna feel like, I have done my job for the day. Good job, me. Setting those daily goals rather than yearly goals is going to give you all sorts of very small victories that will help you feel accomplished and move you toward the end goal of actually finishing the book. A second thing that's really good to do if you're struggling to finish.
300 is a pretty manageable number. Well, like Callie said, 200 words a day for a year is like a 71K novel. So people think it's so difficult, but I mean, that's just writing. So it might take you another year to edit, but still. And that's only 200 words. So like some days you're going to write 200, some days you're going to write 2,000, some days you might write 20,000. 71K before editing, yeah. I understand. It makes sense to structure the story and give it a path. We can take small detours along the way, but we have the objective outlined. And Deja, if you've noticed with Chiral Clones, how this story has evolved because of the potential of the story, to a point where I've rewritten it, like the structure of it, like 5 or 6 times. And I'm finally, I think now, at a point where we have all the scenes actually, like, mattering. And we're at the point where we're like, yes, okay, we can actually start writing. We have the introduction that sets everything up, and then we have all of the other points just going straight down it. And we're just going to pound through it today.
Your book is to create a
writing routine. That's what I do. That's what we're here for. And it's not like I don't write outside of the stream. It's just, it's guaranteed. And it's not like I write every stream, but it's definitely like part of the routine. Because, you know, not every day in your routine is exactly the same, right? Things get swapped around and swapped up because shit happens, right?
Routine. What does this look like? Well, it looks different for every single person, right? But I would say writing at the same time every day is actually much more important than you think it is. What you're trying to do is you're trying to make things automatic, right? You don't have to think like, oh, I should write now. Your body just naturally goes there because it is this time of day, and that's what you always do at this time of day. And I encourage you to try to find the most productive part of your day. When do you
The middle of the
best?
fucking night, guys. For me, it's the middle of the fucking night. I fucking am so tired during the day, and at night, I'm like, I can't fucking sleep. Started writing somewhat blindly. I didn't even know the methods used. I just wanted to write and started. I said I really wanted to finish this. I only have one chapter, but I want it to become something. Exactly, Deja. The biggest problem is starting, but people just, like, it's funny. I was watching a YouTube video today, and it was talking about an experiment. So, in this experiment, a teacher asked, like, split the class into two and asked one, like, the final goal for one half of the class was to make the best, like, perfect, like, it was a sculpting class for, like, or like, you know, like pottery class for, like, making pots out of clay. And the teacher was like, okay, one half of the class has to make the best possible, like, perfect pot, and then the other half of the class just make as many pots as possible. And all of the best quality pots actually came from the people that made the most amount of pots, because it takes practice and work and repetitiveness to refine your skills, and over time, just through doing so much of it, you have hit perfection. Whereas the people that only did one pot were pretty bad because they never had developed any of their skills. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But it's still about finding a easy medium between them, right? Because those who expect perfection sabotage themselves. Exactly, Deja. That's why perfection can never be there. But don't chase perfection, chase realism. And then like I said, it's like the hope versus expectation. You hope to be able to jump like 2 feet. Stephen King says that writing is like training a muscle. Yup. It's like any other skill. And you can literally see that through the last 6 months of, like, look at the stories from the very beginning and look at the stories now. How comfortable I am with them. How, like, the scale of them has increased, right? It's not just one scene with one character. It's multiple characters. The characters are more in depth. There's more than just a hint towards a world. There's a larger background behind it that's being developed alongside the main story. But doesn't it happen to you that you read your own things and no longer like them? I never liked them to begin with, Deja. I don't like anything that I've ever written. It's all fucking terrible dog shit. But I accept that. And you can even tell, like, oh, this dog shit is white and old, that's fucked. And this dog shit is nice and pungent and fresh. So you can, even between dog shit, you can tell. Or do you like to look at them as part of the process? Yeah, it's definitely a part of the process, Deja. And that, I think, is just a healthy mentality for me to have. Alongside, like, I'm like, okay, well, I want to write this into my book. And I'm like, well, how do I do that? And I go, what is my skill level with this? And I go, what short story could I write in order to improve that skill? You know? If you're expecting to like your work, then you're better off misleading yourself. There are many musicians who delete their first song, for example. See, I'm not the type of person that deletes stuff. Except in this case, where we're like, I guess you could say, everything pretty much that I wrote with chiral clones, like almost the entire scene from here, like all of this is probably going to be redone. Exactly, I wouldn't delete it either, but I understand who does it. Yeah. But we have it completely restructured now, right? Like, this is... The structure of this is just bad. Where the hell did I put the other one? Uh-oh. Yeah, here it is. I don't know where the fuck... Okay, well, where is this? Oh my god. Character profiles? Why is it in character profiles? Okay, there we go. That makes more sense. But yeah. Fucking ads. Not the biggest fan of the ads. I have to go. Hope to catch you here when I get back. See you soon. See you soon. Have a good one, Deja.
Different times of writing. If you've tried it morning and night and afternoon, and there are even some people that write like in the middle of the night, which I don't really get, but I guess they're trying to tap into their subconscious somehow. If you want to try that, hey,
that's
go
me.
For it. No shame here. Like if it works for you, it
yeah,
works for you. But
exactly.
In general, I would say find the time that where your brain works best. And for most people, that's usually morning or night. Very few afternoon writers out there. But once again, more power to you if you can actually pull it off. And another really important part of a routine is just coming up with a dedicated space. What is the space that works for you? Is it a quiet space? Is it a loud space? Those both can work for writers. It just depends on what you need. Is it a bright space? Is it a dark space? I remember writing in New York and we didn't have central heating, so my fingers were literally freezing as I tried to type. And on the other hand, I've also written in Palm Springs in California where it was like 115
dark,
degrees
quiet,
outside.
probably.
So you can write in the heat, you can write in the cold. Ultimately, you just have to write. But sometimes it helps if you have a little bit of normalcy and just a space that you can go to that's comfortable and it's routine. The third thing to help you out with finishing your book:
overcome writer's block. I'm pretty good at doing this. I never run out of ideas. I can make an idea out of fucking anything.
Is to figuring out how to overcome writer's block. If you're stuck in a particular...
I got that thing where I can hear electricity though, so it can't be too quiet. Damn. You can hear electricity, like the buzzing.
Scene, I want you to consider a few things. One, you might need to throw that scene away, right? Maybe you're stuck on that scene because you're not meant to write that scene, perhaps. So always consider like throwing it away. The other step is just to skip over it, right? Say, oh, I'm gonna come back and write that later. And that gives you the freedom to move on to a scene which is easier to write. Sometimes the scenes that are easier to write is the scene's way of telling you, or the book's way of communicating to you, that this is what you're supposed to be writing, and you shouldn't be writing that other stuff. Another good
more
thing
of a
to
soft
do is just
screech
to let
and
it
a
rest
buzz,
for a
but
little
you
bit.
know.
Let it sit there for a little while without you working on it or fiddling with it or like trying in your brain to solve the problem.
Let it rest.
Let your unconscious work on the problem and come back after a few days and see whether you get a new idea. Another good thing to do is just read some books, right? Read some books in the genre of what you're writing in. A lot of times that sparks my mental processes, right? I find something in a book which tells me, oh, this is the way that I handle that scene. This is the way out of that sort of narrative corner that I've written myself into. And suddenly I'm sparked, and I can start writing again. And lastly, I would just say don't be too hard on yourself when you have writer's block and when you find that you're not able to write through a scene. We're human, right? We're not machines. So don't be like, brain, why aren't you acting like a machine, like a conveyor belt, and just pummeling this novel out? Well, it's because you go through ebbs and swells, and that's perfectly okay, right? Be easy on yourself. The fourth step to finishing your novel, I think, is to stay motivated. A novel is such a long...
Stay motivated. That is why, like, that's, like, the number one thing that I want to, like, promote in people is, like, keeping the motivation and, like, pressing onwards, not stopping, never giving up, never slowing down, never stopping, always pressing forwards. You have the power in you. You just have to get there. Never settle for less.
Long process that it's easy to fall out of love with the idea. It's easy for other things in your life to take over. It's easy to start playing video games or watching Netflix or do anything other than the hard work of like writing the actual book. So how do you stay motivated, right? One thing is having a community, either a physical community, which I think is the best way to do it, but it's really hard to find other writers sometimes.
That's what you guys are. You guys are my community.
A digital community can work as well, where you're regularly checking in, you're encouraging each other, you're doing beta reads for each other. That sort of assurance that you're not in this alone.
That's the space I want to cultivate.
With a herd, it can be life-changing for your motivation. Another good thing to do is to write down why you want to write this project. And I find that it's not usually that motivating for like fame or money or stuff like that, but like, what's the real reason why you're writing this book? Is it to try to process some sort of traumatic event that you've gone through? Great, write that down and stick it above your desk where you can see it, where you can regularly remind yourself, this is why I'm writing this book. This is why this book matters. If your book is designed to help us sympathize with the disadvantaged somewhere, wonderful, write that down and post it to the wall above your workspace. That way when you get stuck, you can look at that little piece of paper and you can remind yourself, oh yeah, this is why I'm doing this. This is why this matters. And sometimes what you need for motivation is more simple, like visualizing what happens after you publish this book. Maybe you visualize getting good reviews. Maybe you visualize a friend of yours reading it. Maybe you visualize success in some other form. I don't know, it getting made into a movie or something. You can dream. I mean, you can hope. That sort of visualization really helps to give you the courage and to give you the stamina and gives you the fortitude to continue on to work on the book. So I just want to take a moment to talk about how Bookfox can help you in your writing career. If you need copy editing, Danielle Dial has worked with me for 7 years. She is an amazing copy editor and she is going to save you from all sorts of embarrassing mistakes that you really don't want in your book when you publish it. I'll put the link below. Go ahead, click. If you have the book that's ready, great, reach out to her. If you have a book that's going to be ready, great, reach out to her. And when you do finish your book, save her, keep her in mind. She will definitely help you with copy editing and making sure your book is the best thing it can be. And everyone needs help with publicity. Once you get that book out there, it's just gonna sink unless you do a lot of work to bring eyeballs to it. Our publicist on the Bookfox team really helps authors with just that. She sends out tons of emails to a whole bunch of media outlets, getting attention for your book, getting interviews, getting podcasts, getting reviews, figuring out a way to get your book in front of other people's eyeballs. So if you're at that stage, great, reach out on the Bookfox publicity page. If you're not at that stage yet, that's fine. Save that page so when you're ready, you can come back to it. All right, let's go back to ideas for finishing your novel. The fifth step in writing a novel is being able to handle your self-doubt. So we all doubt ourselves, right? We all have those moments when we think, I'm a terrible writer. This is a terrible book. This will never work. You know, I mean, it's entirely natural and entirely human to have those emotions. So what separates writers that are successful and end up finishing the book from the people who don't end up finishing the book, I was gonna say losers, and I'm like, no, that's mean. Don't call them losers. I mean, we've all not finished a book, right? So the way that you handle that self-doubt is key. So I think one thing to do is just acknowledge that this draft is not gonna be perfect. If you give yourself permission to say, you know what, I don't have to write a perfect book this first round. I'm just gonna get it onto the page. I'm gonna throw it onto the page and then I can fix it up later. That sort of
power of editing
is going to give you permission to actually blaze through and finish the book. And then you have something to revise rather than something that's just in your head. It's also a really good idea to separate your writing process. Separate the writing side of the process from the editing side of the process. Because when you start editing is a process of doubting yourself, right? Is this sentence good enough? What can I change about it to make make it better? Is this paragraph good enough, or should I delete it? So you want to put aside that self-doubt for a moment and focus on the generative, creative work of simply writing. It's about silencing that inner critic of yours and allowing yourself to get into the flow, the creative flow. I like that motion. I'm just going to keep on doing that. It's about getting into that flow so you can get the book finished. Marcus Aurelius actually has this great quote in Meditations. He basically says, and yes, I am paraphrasing him here, but he says, if other people have done this, you can do it too. That is a great line to remember when you were trying to overcome self-doubt, right? There are plenty of successful writers that don't have the highest IQs, right? So you should feel comforted by that. You should say to yourself, listen, lots of other people, some of them dumber than me, have accomplished this. I can do it too.
True.
Yeah. 6, manage your distractions.
Manage distractions. This is probably my worst fucking thing. That's why I stream. Because even with this is how I can manage the distractions. As opposed to, just getting... Even a Talks can write. Exactly, Levi. Even I can write. If I can fucking write, anyone can fucking write. I'm just trying to show people that you don't have to be... you can literally be fucking retarded and you can still
First, do an
you can still write.
What are the things that are preventing you from finishing this book? It could be leisure and relaxation time. It could be having a job that eats up all of your time. It could be a lack of sleep. I don't know. You need to figure out what it is that's blocking you and say to yourself, what can I do to remove that blockage to enable me to finish this book? Do you need to get a blocking app for your phone? I have used multiple ones of these, including Freedom, which was one of the original ones that blocks websites and apps. And it allows you to say, okay, for the next hour, don't let me get online. And then you can't get online and there's no possibility of distraction. All you have to do is write. That's literally the only thing you have to do in life. So it forces you to be productive and creative. Maybe managing distractions is as easy for you as putting your phone in the other room or putting your phone on airplane mode to block all sort of notifications. Sometimes it's a really good idea to tell your family and friends, hey, this is my sacred writing time. Don't enter my room or wherever your writing space is. Don't contact me. This is time when you should not talk to me or ask me to do anything for you. Now, are some people going to ignore that? Well, yes, a lot of people don't understand that writing time is sacred time. They're like, oh, I know you write in the mornings, but can you drive me to the airport? And you're like, no, this is like a job. You have to go to work and you have to work. Writing is my job. It is a sacred time. You don't have to quite shout at them like that, but you get the idea, right? You have to be firm. You have to be firm and tell them, these are my boundaries, and create a very high fence of boundaries around your writing time. 7, if you are struggling to finish,
keep the momentum.
your novel, here is how to keep the momentum going. Hemingway famously said that you don't want to write until you peter out when you're working on a project for the day. What you want to do is write for a certain time period. And then when that timer rings, that you stop even if you're right in the middle of a sentence. To him, he said this gave him reserves of juice that he could use the next day so he could start back up again. He said if you kept on writing for too long for a day, then he'd run out of steam and the next day he wouldn't be able to pick it up. So one way to keep the momentum going is to establish time limits for your writing, to say, I'm only going to write for 1 hour. And whatever I get done in that hour, okay, that's what I get done. I'm not going to fret about it. Next day, I have another full hour. Another strategy is to make cliffhangers for yourself. Sometimes the cliffhanger is not just for the reader, right? Sometimes the cliffhanger is like, oh, I kind of want to find out what happens now. Or even if you know what happens, you're still a little bit tantalized because you're like, ooh, I want to write that next scene. It's going to be an absolute doozy. And if you aren't to the end of a chapter, that's fine. Maybe leave off with some sort of note about what the next scene will include.
That's what I do.
It includes some sort of juicy conflict, or if it's a really pivotal scene that you've been wanting to write for a really long time, like the story has been leading up to it for a very long time, then you're going to be excited to come the next day. Basically, always leave something for you to look forward to. That will make it easier to step inside the writing room and enter the fictional dream again. Now, another way to keep the momentum going comes from Janet Fitch, who is an author of White Oleander, among other books, and I had the privilege of learning from her at University of Southern California. She says that you have to write every single day. And even leaving off one day, like stopping writing for a Sunday or something, you think, oh, 6 days out of the week, I've done well, I can take off Sunday. She says, no, you lose momentum And you absolutely have to keep momentum going by writing every single day, or you sort of lose the plot threads, the characters fall out of your brain. And every day that you go, it's harder to jump back into the world of your novel and continue to write. So if you work every single day without ever taking a break, that momentum just keeps on pushing.
Cup of the morning, starting me back in a bit. Be back in a bit. Sounds good, Muffin. Have a good time. Good luck, good sir. Get top 50.
Pushing and pushing, and you're gonna finish the book way sooner. I mean, way sooner than your wildest imaginings. And the final way I'd say to keep the momentum going is to establish some sort of visual tracker. This can be an app where you mark for the day, like, oh, have I written? And then you can look at the month and see all the days that you have written. It keeps you accountable. Like, you're not able to say like, oh yeah, I wrote this month, and then you look and you're like, oh,
it's not something to hold
write
you
as much
accountable.
as
That's
thought
why I
did.
started
so
streaming.
That sort of accountability really lets you know, how am I doing? And especially if you get a streak going and you're marking on a calendar or an app and you have like 10 days in a row writing, 20 days in a row writing, 30, 40 days in a row writing, then you don't want to break that streak, right? You're like, oh man, I don't want to miss a day. Like, I've had this fantastic streak going. So I feel like that is another motivation that helps you keep that momentum. And number 8, get feedback.
Get feedback wisely. Only thing I'm able to motivate myself to do is exercise. Oh, that's okay, Callie. Like you said in the beginning, just set your goals. You just have to, these are just tips and tricks if you're falling into these pit holes, right?
Wisely. So I've worked with
Duolingo, 1,000 days. Damn, Levi.
Good amount of authors who have written part of a novel and they're stuck and they don't know where to take it, right? And I love giving them advice and stepping into that story and saying, all right, here's like 5 different options that this story could go in, where they tell me their ideas and I help them to refine those ideas. Perfectly fine to get help midway through a novel. I know there are some novelists out there who will say, I never show my work to anyone until it's like complete. Like, not just complete, but edited and perfected to the very best I can get it. Okay, I mean, if that's your strategy, then if that's working for you, awesome. But I wouldn't say there's any sort of creative issue with, if you get stuck or if you need motivation, to show it to someone, whether it be a professional editor or whether it just be a beta reader of yours, and to ask them good questions. What do you feel about these characters? What do you think this character is going to do next? What is the next stage in this story, do you think? Obviously, you have to choose these readers really carefully, because just as a good editor or a good beta reader can show you the way forward, a bad editor or a bad beta reader will derail you and like send you in the wrong direction, end up ruining the second half of your book. So you want to be very careful to the voices that you listen to. Make sure they're
don't listen to me.
voices that are going to guide you in the right direction. And remember that lion's share of the responsibilities when dealing with feedback falls on you, right? You have to be able to differentiate between advice that is good and advice that is sort of unhelpful. I know it's your story, right? And you have good instincts about it, and continue to refine those instincts so you can say no to some ideas. I find that some people, some writers, they end up saying yes to everything that anyone tells them. Oh, I should add that chapter? Okay, la-di-da-di-da, I'll just type that out. Or someone else tells them, oh, this doesn't work, and they automatically delete it. In general, you should ignore 50% of the advice that you receive, right? Especially if you're like in a workshop and you're getting advice from 8 to 12 other people. A lot of their advice is going to be terrible. So I give you permission, if you hear something and you're like, I don't think that's right, ignore it. Ignore it. It's your story. You have to be the one in charge of telling it. On the other hand, if you find that you are ignoring too much advice, then you might have a problem with accepting advice. Just remember, it's perfectly fine to get advice on a chapter-by-chapter basis. I think of the Inklings, C.S. Lewis and Tolkien were probably the most famous examples, and they used to gather once a week at a bar called The Bird and the Baby, also known as The Eagle and the Child. That was the official name, but the nickname was The Bird and the Baby. And they would read a chapter out loud to everyone else gathered there and then receive criticism for it. And Tolkien was always mad that Lewis was writing so quickly, and he would always have something to share, and Tolkien would like labor for years and years just to get a chapter done, but that's beside the point. You like that sidebar there? The point is, even some of the greatest authors of the 20th century were getting advice after every single chapter, feedback on what they were doing well, and that would influence how they wrote the next chapter.
True.